You're listening to Pro Booth Talk, education and insights for photo booth company owners.
Welcome to Pro Booth Talk. I'm Jason Whaley here with Lapley.
Hi guys. Welcome back.
So I wanted to talk about price matching a bit today. Of course, it's something that we all come across, clients asking if we'll price match. I feel like I probably heard it a lot more when we were younger and lower demographic. I don't think a lot of our clients are price matching or shopping by price. I mean, there certainly are a lot, but not nearly as many as there were, I feel like, anyways. Do you see the same thing, you think?
Absolutely. I don't think we used to always get people requesting that we price match during the sales process, but a lot of our clientele now, they actually know that we're highly sought after and they don't mention price for the most part. We do get blind leads, people who find us randomly on Google searches and through our website that might contact us and bring up price matching. But the way the conversation goes with a lot of the sales calls that I do, I get asked a lot, like, how do you even respond when someone asks about price matching, or asking about prices? Like, I really focus on the whole sales process before I even answer I don't even acknowledge the question for price.
Yeah, I love that. I've never tried to just ignore them. That's never been an approach that we've attempted.
It's something that I learned. I was on the commission sales floor for maybe about 4 years for a big box retail company. And we were required they gave us a whole booklet and it had a whole sales script. So we were required, and this is something I had thorough training in through that box company as well as the wireless companies that I worked for. We had scripts that we had to go through. So no matter what your prospect asked you, you actually had to go through every single question. You had to turn that script in at the end of the business day. So there was no option to skip to just straight answering their price question. So it was something that was very, very awkward. I always talk to people about learning and what's that called? Role playing, because at first it's very, very uncomfortable. It's very awkward at first for someone to ask you how much is a photo booth and for you to go through everything else and discuss everything but the price. But that's the process that I have with my sales.
Yeah, I feel like I would be pretty irritated if I was a client and that happened, but you don't see that. I guess people are too distracted and they go off in different directions.
Jason, because when I joined the job market when I was like 18 or 19, I thought the same thing. Like, I thought this would be ridiculous for someone to ask me a direct question, like how much. So an example is I sold vacuums for a big box retailer and we made commission off that. So for me to come into a retail store and be like, how much is this vacuum versus how much is this vacuum? Like, what's the price? And for me to go into all these questions, like, what are you using it for? What do you have pets? You would think that people are just going to roll their eyes and walk away, but you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised that I worked there for like 3 or 4 years, and every client that I had for those 3 or 4 years, a lot of people are very polite and they'll go through answering those questions. And as you ask more questions, they start to realize like the reason why you're asking those questions is because you're not trying to just push any vacuum or any product towards them. You're actually taking the time to like find out what they're needing and what they actually will be a good fit for them. So they have the patience. You'd be surprised. Like, I've never had anybody be like, I just want to know the price. I've never had that. And that sounds so odd to say. But I also think like you being comfortable with your sales process makes a huge difference, because if you're awkward, of course, people aren't going to have the patience for you. So the whole sales process, the main part of the sales process is making a 60-second friend. I don't know if you've ever heard that before, but once you make that connection and that friendship with them, people are going to listen to you.
Yeah, I like that. Always trying to make that friendship. And I guess it makes more sense hearing that if they ask the price between 2 items, you start qualifying instead of just going off like gaslighting them. Like when you said it before, I was hearing very much like a politician. Like, what are you going to do about the budget? And just going completely in a different direction. But that makes much more sense.
Yeah, so once they realize the rhyme and reason behind the questions, a really great example is there's a lot of people that will come in through my experience, there was a lot of people that would come into the store and they'd be like, I saw this ad. I want to see this vacuum. This is the cheapest vacuum. It, it was like a $39 vacuum. At that time, that was like the cheapest. I don't know what they are now, but, like a guy came in and was like, show me this vacuum. I want the cheapest vacuum you have and I want to test it out. And I told him, I said, do you want the cheapest vacuum or do you want a good vacuum? Because if you want a good vacuum, I'm not going to plug this in for you to test out because it's a waste of your time. Tell me what you're vacuuming. Like, do you have pets? And the reason why all that matters is a $39 vacuum does not have the strength. It's not built well enough to handle the kind of dog hair that you have if you have like a huge dog that sheds like crazy. $39, that vacuum is going to be wiped out in, like a week, so he got very upset. And this is the thing, like being confident in what you're selling and knowing that you are the professional at what you do. In the sales process, there's a lot of moments where your customer is going to get upset at you for suggesting certain products that they perceive as beyond their budget, right? Like they in their mind have a budget. This guy had a budget. I want to spend $39 on this vacuum. I don't want to spend any more. But when you start to qualify them and you educate them on like why a $39 vacuum is not good, because you already qualify. You already know they have these dogs that have long hair. They shed like crazy. That vacuum's going to be wiped out. They understand why you're suggesting better vacuum cleaners. And this guy, at first, when I first told him, I'm not going to plug this vacuum in. And it sounds like I'm making this up because I hear myself talking. I'm like, I can't believe I said that either. But I told him, I'm like, I'm not going to plug this vacuum in because it's a waste of our time to plug in this vacuum if it's not what you need. If it's cheap that you want, let's go ring it up. You don't even need to plug it in because what does it matter if it's good or not? You don't care if it's good or not. Yeah. You just care it's cheap, right? And he was like, let me talk to your manager. Da, da, da. And I said, the reason why I'm telling you I'm not going to plug this in because if your only reasoning on buying this vacuum is it's cheap, why do we have to plug it in? You do not care if it's good. You just care it's cheap, right? So if you actually want to have a conversation with me and you want to try out vacuums, let's go through like what you're going to be using this for. How big is your house? What kind of floors, carpet, linoleum? You have pets, you have kids, and we will figure out what options might be a better choice for you. And we'll plug those in and then you can kind of see like the difference between them. This guy ended up walking out with a $400 vacuum. He signed up for a 3-year warranty. Yeah, he signed up for a 3-year warranty. And when he left, I shook his hand. I said, congratulations. I'm glad I won't see you back here next week. and he laughed because we had that, we already built that friendship. I know it started off rough, but, I built that trust and friendship with him where he trusted the things that I was saying. He trusted that I was there looking out for him, getting him what he needed versus just, him buying the cheapest item. And he knew when I said that I was being very serious because if he bought that $10 vacuum, he would be back next week having to replace that vacuum that he bought, and he knew that. And so he shook my hand, he laughed, he said, thank you so much. And he thanked me for selling him a vacuum that he needed. And he was not back. I didn't see him again for the next 3 years. So I don't think that you should focus on price when you're selling. And when clients do focus on price, you can guide them away from that. You can guide them away from focusing on just the cheapest and getting them to understand that the cheapest doesn't necessarily mean it's their best fit.
Yeah, I also hope that guy for some reason hears this podcast someday because that'll be so random for that story to have ended up in a podcast years down the road. So
19 at the time, that was 20 years ago.
Also, I can't wait for the AI engine that I use to like create show notes to go through this and think that we're selling vacuums and talking about dog hair.
Oh no!
It's okay. It's going to be a fun read for me. But yeah, I like the comparison because a lot of people, if they're asking you to compare prices, you're right. If you're just shopping for price, you've already found what you're looking for. Why are you still here? And it's good to kind of push them back into that experience. And like we would often ask them, like, well, we can't match prices. Have you asked that other company if they can match our quality? Why are you only trying to price match instead of quality match? Because they can't match our quality. Yes. And that's why you're still talking to us. And you'll hear a lot of if the price is lower and they have them booked, they're still talking to you, then there's a reason. Obviously they are interested in what you have. So, maybe there's some value if you're in the lower market to just lower your price and take it if they are interested in you. But I would argue that, like, I feel like the vast majority, like maybe 90% of the people we said no to still booked us. So I mean, there's a lot of value in just holding your ground. And if you actually know why you charge what you charge, then you'll know that you really can't discount your prices.
That's a common thing. Like, if you know why that's a huge part of being able to command the prices that you command. Because if you don't believe that you're worth what you're charging, how can you convince your client that you're worth what you're charging? And it shows when you're communicating with them. And, if they do ask about price matching, or if they do comment like, wow, you're the most expensive company that has quoted me so far. And if you actually sit there and take a breath and be like, no, like, I'm the most expensive. And in your mind, if you're thinking, oh gosh, like I have to start throwing stuff at them to make it worth their while, your client is going to pick up on the fact that you suddenly feel self-conscious about your price points. And that makes them question if they are making the right investment booking you for their photo booth, if you don't even have confidence in the prices that you're charging.
Yeah, like you said, they'll definitely read your composure, even if you're on the phone. Like they can still, they feel it, they hear
nonverbal. Yeah, nonverbal cues. If you've ever done like sales over the phone, there's a lot of things that you do over the phone that people will pick up on, and that's the reason why I always talk about like role playing your sales process, because people will pick up on those moments of silence. Very subtle things that you might not even be conscious of. They'll pick up on it, and that will make them question if you're the right company for them. But I agree with you. Like if you're calling us and someone else already has a great price, if their service matches ours, why are you still calling us? There's a reason we're different. Like what stood out about us that you're asking us to price match them? If you already have the price, you already have the service that you're looking for, why are you still calling us? There's a reason for that.
And a lot of times they don't know why. A lot of times they can see that you're better, but they can't really understand why. They'll be looking at, like, trying to compare apples to apples and saying, okay, this company is 3 hours and this company is 3 hours. This company has an album and this company has an album. And you have to draw them away from comparing that list, because you can always do that with, I mean, any products. You can say Walmart versus, I don't know, some high-end shopping area. I don't know high-end shopping stores, but they both have.
It doesn't even have to be high-end. Yeah, it could be like Walmart versus Target. Even subtle.
They both have aisles and good lighting and organization of their products, or checkout tellers, or self-checkout, whatever you want. And, so you can always compare, and two items will always look the same just from a list. Or if you want to compare hotels, they're both going to have comfortable beds and clean bathrooms and early check-in, or whatever it is. But one may be the Waldorf and one may be a Motel 8. Or comparing a Tesla to, I don't know, a used Camry. Both might have backup cameras and cruise control and whatever. What's that?
I love my Toyotas.
But you certainly just can't shop. I mean, then you're product shopping, and you hear over and over again you're selling a service, and sell the experience. And if you're listing off items, you're not selling that experience, and you're not selling the service. So you need to move them away from listing off items, because also if they say, can you match this price? Why are you so much more expensive? And you start saying, well, I have studio lighting and I have quality props. Then they can just go back to that other company. And the other company, I'm sure, has studio lighting and quality props also. And you're just helping them bring you down to their level and making it easier for them to book the other company instead of you.
Yeah. I think a really great example in my mind and my own personal experience is like when I was younger, I used to shop at Walmart because I was always on a budget. Like I cared more about saving, the $1, $2, $3. And I could not imagine, we all know CVS and Save-On. We all know that those exist, but like you could buy chips at Walmart for like $2, and at Save-On, it's like 3 or 4 times the cost. And when I was young, I had plenty of time and I was not going to pay 3 or 4 times the cost for the same chips. Now, just to put things in perspective for you, like Now my focus is a lot different because now I'm older. I have a busy life, kids, business. So the convenience that CVS and Save On and Rite Aid have of like you just running in, grabbing what you need, going, checking out and paying, I'm willing to pay that extra 300% on those chips because I don't have the time to like stroll through all the aisles of Walmart, go through the long lines of Walmart, people having, carts and carts of. So the convenience of Save On is that is where I'm at this moment in my life. So I'm not going to care about, and this sounds weird because you don't think you're ever going to open your mouth and say this, but everybody has they have different circumstances. So right now, for me, convenience is so much more important to me than saving $1 or $2. So for me, I'll run into Save On and I'll pay $5 for the bag of chips. I know I can get two at Walmart for $2. And that's the way you should approach it with how you're selling as well. Like there's going to be people who are running their events and yes, they're going to care about a photo booth that charges a ridiculous this is insane rates, but $200 for like, someone who does this like a weekend warrior who just does this for fun as a hobby. For their like daughter's third birthday, they don't care. They just want something fun. They're going to book a company that charges $200. If that company falls through, which a lot of them do because, those companies will like have equipment that break. They don't have backup. If they get canceled that same day, they're going to call companies like me because they know we've been around. We've established our reputation as being very reliable. And we just can't perform at that price. And having that conversation with your client, like the reason why you're being canceled the day of your event is because you booked someone that is not running this as a business. They don't have backup. They don't have multiple photo booths. They don't have multiple team members. They have one photo booth, one camera. Their camera knocks out, it wipes out all of their events. Or even worse, they could have possibly booked another job that was willing to pay $25 more and they canceled your event. To you, your event is a huge deal, but to that provider, they'd rather make the extra $25, that's not something my company would do because we don't price so low that we even have to think twice. If another booking comes in, we're not going to cancel you for an extra $25. We're not going to cancel you even if it was an extra $4,000 because we don't need to. We have the resources to be able to deliver multiple events. And also we charge enough that all of our clients are valuable. Of course, making the extra, making an event, booking an event for $10,000 is awesome. But that doesn't mean an event that books at, $1,200, $1,300 is not valuable to us. We're not just going to cancel you just because. And that's something that is part of the sales process when you're talking to your client that you have to get them. And I know you brought this up, like you have to get them to think beyond what they're seeing on paper. And this is what I communicate with my clients. On paper, when you look at our websites, when you see what that company lists and what my company lists, we look identical on paper, but there's a reason why our company has the demand that we have. And the reason why we have the amount of booths that we have, the amount of employees that we have is there's a reason. There's something beyond what you're seeing on paper. And let's go through, and a lot of us, especially if we don't have sales experience, we rush through that. Like, oh, you're too expensive for me. And you just, okay, well, yeah, we're too expensive. Okay, bye. And then you hang up the phone. You really have to you have to educate them on why you cost what you do. It's not really justifying why you're expensive. It's talking to them and educating them about what it is that makes you different. We are different because we invest in our team. We invest in R&D. Some companies don't even know what R&D is because they don't do that. They're not constantly trying to improve their systems. Once they figure out, a makeshift, and I hate to say this, there's a lot of companies that just set up their booth from the manufacturer, whatever camera settings is in there, that's what they use. And then when the ambient light, and we see this post every single day, when the ambient lighting isn't ideal, most of the time your same settings works for like 95% of your events. But that 5% could really throw you off. There's a lot of companies that don't invest in the education on learning photography and like learning their systems where, if they always do strips, suddenly they're doing 4x6. They have no idea how to turn off the strip cut. And this sounds so insane that there's companies that run like this, but there's companies that have no idea how to like turn on a photo strip cut or turn it off or do 4x6 versus strips. Like there's companies that don't know how to do this kind of stuff. And this is the core of what you do as your business, you know? It sounds very long-winded. It sounds like customers aren't going to sit there and listen to you, but you'd be surprised. A lot of people need that reassurance on their investment. That's really the biggest challenge. People aren't really calling you to just hear about your price. They want to know that they're making a sound investment. And if you're just throwing out a number and you're not educating your client, they're just thinking this booth is 200 and this booth is 13. That's all they see. They just see numbers and they see on paper you guys are exactly the same. So you're not doing your job and you're not doing them justice by educating them on why there's no way that you could deliver a photo booth for $200. You know, you have to educate them on that.
Yeah, and sometimes, I mean, letting them paint that picture themselves and reminding them why they're calling you back, even though they found somebody cheaper. Maybe ask them what specifically attracted them to you initially, and I don't know, maybe it's because you have so many 5-star reviews, and then you could put it back on them and say, okay, so did you find that the other price company also has those many reviews? You didn't, or because someone referred you to them, and you didn't find that with the other. Like, there's a reason that you're calling us back, and just working through those or highlighting those things that they initially found that they're coming to you for, or yeah, exactly. So you're reaching out and saying, you know, will you match our prices? You could just ask them. So our prices are higher than you expected. What kind of price did you expect? And if they're saying something like, well, this other company is $350. And again, just pushing it back on them. Okay, so you found a company that's $350 that delivers the quality and service that you're looking for. And obviously the answer is going to be no, because they're calling you back, and then they have to respond and actually verbalize that and say, well, no, we're finding this or that, and then you can address those issues that they're finding. Or if they're saying, well, this other company's $350 and you guys are more, but you have this thing or that thing that we don't need. Well, we can't get to $350, but let's take a look at your invoice and let's see if there's some things we can move around. And that way there's an actual give or take, and you're not just discounting your service. Because, you know, when you say have a service that say, I don't know, $1,000 and then you price match it to $700, you're essentially saying, okay, this service was already $700 and we were just stealing $300 from you, and
which is marking it up just for
and that leaves a bad taste in people's mouths too. So if you actually equate some kind of quality and say, okay, you're trying to get to $700, let's look at your invoice and look how many hours. Maybe you don't need that custom wrap, or maybe let's take that memory album out. And then when they start seeing that there's value associated with everything that you're doing, it helps them understand why that you're charging so much as well.
Yes, that's the approach that I take. I don't do too many sales calls now because a lot of our clients, you know, we get a lot of we're heavy referral based now. So it's not a lot of objections that we have to overcome these days. But I know back in the day when I was first starting to grow, that was a common conversation that I had. And the biggest thing was like, you guys reached out to us because we do stuff beyond what you see other companies do. You guys see us as being this great service for a reason, be it, you know, because we understand logistics of like cocktail hour and, you know, planning for extra time to like check into loading docks, things like our experience. And, you know, there's several reasons why you have come to us. Our social media has beautiful setup shots, or, you know, we have beautiful print designs. There's a reason why you've come to us, and that stands out. And a lot of that comes with our investment in what we do. So what type of cost cutting would you like us to take? And any type of cost cutting that we do will deteriorate the type of company we are. So if we take these cuts on investing in our team, or investing in backup equipment, or investing in like the type of custom print designs that we do for all of our clients. So if we take those shortcuts, we become that company that you're not calling for, you know. And is that what you want? If you want that other company, how come you're not booking them? You want us because we invest in who we are, you know, and we don't take those shortcuts. That's the reason why you're calling me. And, you know, you mentioned earlier, like when you a lot of customers don't really like register why they want you. Like they don't necessarily know why they like your company better than the other company. I've always just approached it like, what about us stood out? Like I asked them very direct, what about us stood out? Like what about us made us stand out over the other company? And they'll tell you, like, instead of saying like, why do you want us to price match over instead of asking like that, just be asking them, you know, what about us stood out? And they'll usually tell you like, oh, you know, on your social media, we saw like just how beautiful your setups were, how they're not an eyesore. Okay, so this is something that is not, it doesn't come free. Our time, the time that we spend to train our team to be able to do small things that you think is small, like gaffing straight, that's so minor. But in the grand scheme of things, when you're looking at that whole setup shot, that stood out to you, just that small detail. You don't know it's straight gaff. You don't know that we're hiding the gaff in front of the photo booth so that when we snap a photo, you don't even see the extension cord. Mm-hmm. You don't register that, but that's things that we invest in. And it's not so simple as like just every company just gaff straight. Like we train our team to gaff straight. We train our team to line up the photo booth to the backdrop. And that creates an aesthetic that you don't even register, but that's something we invest in, you know, and that's just one small portion of the entire photo booth experience that we bring to you guys, you know. So that's not even factoring like small personalizations that we do, working really closely with you to make sure that we deliver the photo booth and make it very seamless. That's like, there's so many aspects of what we do, but just the tape part, so they register, you know, how they don't just the little things. Really realize. Yeah, when you point out something like that, they're like, it kind of turns on a light bulb. Like, shoot, you know, she's right. Like, I didn't realize that the gaff was straight, but when you point it out, it really registers with them. So I feel like a lot of times just directly having that conversation. You hear me say that a lot, like have the direct conversation. It's awkward for a lot of people because a lot of us do not have the sales experience. So I have over 20 years of like commission sales. So like my money meant that I had to really close clients, right? So it was really important for me to learn how to like overcome a lot of objections. So I learned that the best way is very direct, and you can't be direct if you don't know where they're coming from. So if you're not asking the qualifying questions, there's no way for you to overcome their objections, because you don't know what their needs are. You don't know what objections, like you don't know what their requirements are. You don't know what type of you don't know what fits best. So asking all the right questions gives you, I hate to put it in this word, but I can't think of any other way to say it, but it's like ammunition to fire at them to overcome any sort of objections that they have for you. And it's not really like, ammunition sounds so negative. It's more just like, okay, you had mentioned that you're worried about people being on time. We've done this for 13 years. We already know like what type of logistics. We already know like what timelines we can anticipate for like us running late because of traffic or us running late because we have to check in with security. We have that experience. And that's part of the cost of why we cost more than another company, because you know we're going to be on time.
Mm-hmm. And even qualifying yourself to, you know, you mentioned we've been in business for 13 years. We've been through those things, and really pointing out, even painting a picture. Like there was a time in our first couple of years where, you know, we almost missed a few deadlines, where we hit traffic and we were almost late, and just kind of remind them, those companies that are newer, that within a couple of years, and sorry, companies that are only a couple of years old out there, you know, we're taking advantage of that. They don't have that experience and knowledge yet. And that's one of the reasons that they're charging what they're charging. Ultimately, we can't deliver the service and the quality and the support that we do at the price that they're charging, and honestly, either can they, which is why you're talking to us, because they don't have what we have. They have their price,
right?
And that's
right.
all that they can offer. And of course, you can remind them that every industry has these variable price points, and a lot of times they forget it because they're not constantly shopping for photo booths. So they often just feel like every photo booth company is the same. You know, if it's a wedding, they're obviously not going to pull over to the corner to the person selling flowers on the corner and ask them to provide floral for their wedding, or go to the florist and say, well, I found this guy on the corner that's selling roses for way cheaper than you are. So, or the same thing with the, I don't know, photographers. There's going to be so many variables and degrees of expertise and presentation and everything. But for some reason, I feel like that's lost a lot on the photo booth. So sometimes it's good to just kind of remind them that, you know, you can hire a high school kid walking down the street with a roll of paper towels and a bottle of Windex to clean your windows, or you can hire someone that's insured, that has years of experience, that's not going to scratch your windows, that knows the difference between thicknesses of panes and how the sprays are going to affect it, and you know, whatever the scenarios of or variables for window cleaning that I'm just making up because I don't know anything about window cleaning.
Right. No, but yes, that's very true. Different levels of skill set. So skill set, experience, knowledge, all of that comes into play with pricing and communicating that to your client. I feel, you know, Jason, I feel like the biggest hurdle is not even your client. The biggest hurdle that I see is within ourselves. This industry is still, you know, the industry is like what, 15 years, really started growing like in the last like 13, 14, 15 years. And like a lot of people that I talk to who like accidentally fell into this or like purposely, you know, started their photo booth company, like most of us have no real benchmark of what we should be charging, like what the value of what we do is. So the biggest hurdle I see is you're creating your own glass ceiling, a lot of us, and I'm guilty of this myself, where when I first started, I just thought this was like a goofy photo opportunity, that, you know, goofy with the props and stuff like that. Like I didn't think much of it. So if you had asked me those years earlier, I remember several people like told me, Lap, raise your prices, your quality and what you're providing is worth way more. I didn't even see it like within myself. I couldn't even see it, you know, like I argued, no, my market can't support that. And, you know, all sorts of like, I was creating my own obstacles. Like it wasn't even my plan.
Too many competition. It's saturated in my market. I mean, we've all been through those same arguments.
Yes. So thousands of other providers, I mean, like florists are providing it, planners, even like barbershops. I mean, I was at this museum the other day. They had their own photo booth there. You know, like there's you, and then you're just thinking there's all this competition. But the thing is, like, if you make sure that your company stands out, then there's not really as much competition, you know, like there's different, and I know we have another episode about this. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but I know we had another episode about like different levels of photo booth experiences, like different types of experiences and like being a different type of vendor. So there's different levels. If you're like most people in our industry where you're just like trying to price, if you're selling by price, you're going to have a huge portion of the market competing with you. I want to say it's like 80% of the market will be competing on price with you.
And it's impossible because if you're competing by price, the only thing you can do is be the lowest, and the next person that's competing by the price is going to be lower than you, and it's the literal race to the bottom that everyone's talking about. Fortunately, it doesn't really exist when you get out of that race. People like to blame that on the entire industry, but like and once you break free of the price shoppers, that race to the bottom doesn't really exist. That's only in the demographic of the subprime people that are shopping exclusively by price, and the only ammunition you have when you're attracting people shopping by price is by lowering your price, and that's the worst scenario you could put yourself in.
Or throwing in a bunch of stuff like stanchions and red carpets and tons of props and like, you know, like free services on top of that, like GIFs or boomerangs and stuff like that. So the thing is, like, for anybody that is in that market or in that like pool of like low price clientele where, you know, they'll book someone else just because they're $25 cheaper, I just want to clarify, like, it's not just me talking out of, you know, like, it's not me pulling ideas out of thin air. I have been that photo booth owner. I was that person who was making arguments with other people who were telling me to raise my price. You know, I was the one who was sitting there telling people, you know, I'm gonna lower my price. I got to book because if it's only $20 less, I'll just price match. It's only $20. I would justify things like that. So I've been there. I'm not, and I feel like Jason, we've had this conversation where you grew your price up as well. So when we're talking to you about this, we're not just saying this because we're like attacking. I'm not trying to attack anybody that is charging less. It's just one of my biggest regrets from doing this is, and this is something that I've always heard through the years, but when I actually experienced it and lived it myself, now I totally understand the whole concept of, like, people would say you only have a certain number of days where you're going to be booking a photo booth, or you have the opportunity to book a photo booth. A lot of photo booth vendors are like in the private parties, like weddings and birthday parties, things like that. So your main booking days or booking opportunity days is going to be like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. People don't really throw parties like Monday through Thursday. So those 3 days are your days to make your entire living, basically. And even if you do this as a hobby, but those 3 days is when everybody else has a life. People have parties, people have, baby showers. You miss out. And this is not so much on the pricing part, but it's related because you sacrifice your time. Even if you're doing this as a weekend warrior, you're sacrificing your own time from your family, from your memories, from your holidays, you guys, like Christmas, New Year's Eve. These are days that are in high demand because people want to do photo booths on these premium, party days. And so you sacrifice this time. And if you're selling it for a very low cost, in my own experience, I really regret those moments that I sacrificed time with my family. Instead of being at Disneyland, enjoying my time at Disneyland, I was worried about a photo booth that was profiting me probably $40, $50 net, instead of like, and my Disneyland ticket is probably like, it's not probably gonna not age well, but probably like $130. In, a few years it'll be more. But like, I look back now and because I always argued, my market can't justify it. It's worth my time. The little money I make, the extra money I make, it's just nice to have extra money on the side.
Mm-hmm.
And what you don't realize until you're very deep in it, or even 3 or 4 years into it, you realize that you sacrifice a lot of your family time for pennies to the dollar.
Yeah.
And that's something that I don't like to see for other people. If I can help anybody, like encourage anybody to like raise your prices so that you don't have that regret. I don't want to start crying, you guys, because this is very like this is very real for me. No, Jason, make sure you cut some of this off. But I just want you guys to know, like, this is, people think that it's, sometimes a lot of the owners think that we're telling you this stuff because we don't want low price. We don't want to compete with low price boothers and stuff like that, and like it's malicious. It's not. I want to tell you myself, I wish more people got on my back to raise my prices. And I know there's a few. I'm sorry, guys. This is very personal to me because I'm thankful for the folks that did come to me and like constantly like remind me and really like egg me on about like, raise your freaking prices. It's ridiculous. Your prices are ridiculous. And I never understood when they would tell me my prices were ridiculous because I felt they were fair because that's what I would pay. And when I took myself out of that mentality of like what I could afford and what I could pay was when it really freed me, because I understood like just because I can't afford it doesn't mean that it's worth what I'm willing to pay. I'm not a brand who's investing in photo booth for marketing. I don't have, millions of dollars to invest into a marketing strategy. Where with the photo booth, it's part of their marketing dollars. What some of you guys might think like $5,000 is an insane amount of money for a photo booth. On the marketing side, I mean, they spend millions of dollars on like a 30-second Super Bowl commercial, just to put that in perspective for you guys. And I wish that I knew that earlier in my career so I don't have that regret. This is long-winded, you guys. I'm sorry. I just want to clarify.
It's good, and I love it because it kind of wraps right back around to one of the first points you were making about running into a CVS. There's some people that may scoff that you're willing to pay extra money to save those couple minutes because those few dollars are so valuable to them, because everyone's in different positions in their life, but you're willing to pay for that convenience. And some other people are willing to pay for that convenience, or they're willing to pay for that exclusivity, or they're willing to pay for that elevated event, or they're willing to pay for, people are willing to pay for things because they're in different positions in their own lives or have different scenarios than you do. And sometimes, like CVS realized, some people are willing to pay extra for a bag of chips because they're willing to pay for that exclusivity, even if their staff isn't willing to pay for that. Maybe their staff is getting off and going to the supermarket because they're not going to pay the overinflated prices of the CVS.
Right. And I come into that a lot. I come into that frequently, where when I'm having a conversation with like a planner or anything like that, where they don't even care. They don't even care if your photo booth is beautiful photos. They don't even care if you do prints. They just want to hear that you are going to make their life easy. I know that's very weird to hear that, but it is a reality that a lot of these planners are not, especially when you're talking on the corporate side, their main job is like something totally different. And someone just dropped into their lap the responsibility of having to find a photo booth. And it's a lot of pressure for someone who that is not what they're hired. Their job is not an event planner. That's just extra work that's laid onto their lap, and they know nothing about events. They know nothing about planning. They know nothing about, logistics of anything. So just hearing that you can make their job easier because once they book you, they don't have to think twice. They don't have to think about the photo booth anymore. You just relieved a lot of the weight off of their shoulders. I book events because of that. They don't even care that the photos look amazing. It's just a nice bonus. It's a nice bonus for them. And, like them getting a pat on the back afterwards, like, oh my God, that's an amazing photo booth. That's a nice bonus for them. But there's a lot of planners that really they just want you to make their life easier. And that's the reason why I brought up the Save On example, is because sometimes it's not, you guys, a lot of us in our industry, we talk about like, oh, I bring great service. I bring beautiful photos. I'm going to bring you something creative. Sometimes they don't care about any of that. They just want to know that you know what you're doing, and you're not going to blow up their phone asking them where to park, asking them where loading dock is, asking them where the venue space is. They just want to know that they're going to send you what they have, and you're going to figure it out for them. The whole point of this podcast is like, educate yourself on the value of what you bring, and there really shouldn't be too much issues for you to sell. Like, you won't feel weird about selling because you're pricier. It shouldn't even be a discussion. Of course, people have budgets, but the right client is gonna look beyond the dollar amount, and they're gonna see the value of what you do. And that comes down to you knowing what value you bring. So educate yourself, learn like what we do, like how powerful our services are, the value they bring to different companies, and not just companies, but private parties. Like why we are so important. We're not just silly photo booths anymore.
So I guess to recap, run your business how you want to run it. I recommend not price matching. You came to your price for a specific reason. Stick to those reasons. And I would suggest, if you're getting a lot of people asking you to price match, try raising your prices, like literally like double your rate. And I imagine, sure, you'll book fewer, but your profit margin will be so greater that shouldn't affect you so much. And I think you'll find a lot fewer people trying to price match with you. But let us know what you think. If you are price matching, if you agree with this, disagree, let us know, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Next time I won't be crying.
We love the power. The emotion is powerful.
Man.
Thanks, everyone.
I'm passionate about it Thanks, guys.
To keep the conversation going, join our Facebook group, Pro Booth Talk Community. If you enjoyed this podcast, consider showing your support by subscribing, liking, reviewing, or sharing this topic with someone in the industry.